Welcome to Pyrography Made Easy. I'm Brenda. In this episode, I am going to be talking about my zigzag burn stroke. I use this burn stroke to create a variety of realistic textures, like fur, tree bark, and even mountains. In this video, I will explain what the zigzags are, how to create them. I will demonstrate how I use them in some different textures, and I will give you some tips to get better results. Well, let's get started. Zigzags are lines burned in an up and down direction. I actually burned them so they are shaped more like a bolt of lightning or maybe a seismograph. The zigzags can be burned up and down, diagonally, or in a left and right direction. It is important to vary where you start each zigzag burn stroke. Make sure to vary how long each of the zigzag strokes are. Also, vary how wide each of the zigzag strokes are. Do not burn rows of zigzags. This will not produce realistic texture. Instead, burn the zigzags using the 3 guidelines. There are 3 main ways to alter the darkness of your burns. First, the smaller the gap is between the lines, the darker the overall color will appear. Second is reburning. The color will get darker every time you reburn over an area. The third way is to change the heat setting on your burner. Obviously, the higher the heat is set, the darker the burn marks will be. I personally prefer options 1 and 2 and very seldom use option 3. Using the razor edge or the side of the pen tip creates thin, crisp lines. This is used where you want good detail that is sharp and in focus. Decrease the angle of the pen tip and the lines get a bit thicker and softer. This is great for a base layer to quickly add color, or when you want to transition from in focus to out of focus. Decrease the angle even more and the lines become fuzzy and much thicker. This is perfect for out of focus areas, and it can help give depth to the artwork. For example, with this dog, use the razor edge to get crisp lines when working on the face. Decrease the angle and work on the front legs to get a softer look. Use the flat of the shader to create the out-of-focus body. Creating fur texture is my most common use of zigzags. The zigzags are burned in the direction that the fur grows. The length of the zigzags correspond to how long the fur is. I do have a tutorial available for this bobcat, and I will put a link to that video in the description below. I have another fur tutorial that showcases how to use the 3 zigzag guidelines, and I think this tutorial can be very beneficial for anyone struggling with my zigzag burn stroke concept. I will put a link to the tutorial in the video description. Rough tree bark is another common use I have for zigzags. These zigzags are burned in the direction the bark is growing. I deliberately work at creating randomly placed dark cracks in the bark by reburning and having very small gaps in the lines. There is a tutorial available and a link will be in the video description. Zigzags can be used to create realistic mountain texture. The basic premise is to burn zigzags that angle downward from a peak or spine. To the left of the peak or spine, the zigzags angle down and to the left. And of course to the right, the zigzags angle down and towards the right. This is another texture that I have a tutorial for, and the link will be in the video description. I do have a more beginner-friendly mountain tutorial. The basic premise for creating the texture remains the same. The difference between this one and the previous texture is that the previous texture has more layers and there are a few areas that require some other burn strokes. A link to this tutorial will be in the video description. I've used the zigzag burn stroke to create grass texture. The grass is intended to be a background filler, so it doesn't have a lot of detail. The grass texture is created by burning zigzags in an up and down direction. As I work my way further into the background, the less detail the grass has. The detail level is controlled by the angle that the pen tip is held at. Decrease that angle, and the grass gets softer looking, and this pushes it further into the background. A tutorial for this is available, and I will put a link in the video description. My last zigzag texture example is choppy water. This is created by burning a loose zigzag in a horizontal direction. Loose zigzags means that there are a lot of gaps between the burn strokes. Now I know you're going to be surprised by this, but I do have a tutorial video that goes into greater detail on this texture. A link to that tutorial will be in the video description. Tip 1. Sand the board. I've sanded half of the board with 220 grit sandpaper, and you can really see the difference. Not all boards will be like this, but always sand the board. Any imperfections in the board can snag the pen tip, causing uneven results, and can even cause dark blotches in your burn results. Plus, the lines may be fuzzy looking, which isn't a good thing if you're after sharp, crisp lines. Burning with the flat of the shader really shows the difference in texture between a sanded and non-sanded board. Hopefully you can tell that the left side of the board has been sanded. Tip 2. Pull the pen tip, don't push it. If you're right-handed, this means you burn from left to right, not right to left. Pulling the pen tip does two things. First, it allows you to see what you're doing, and second, it is easier to control the pen and the burn results. Tip 3. Use a light hand pressure. The inset green box is being burned with light hand pressure. The burn to the left of it is heavy hand pressure. Using a light hand pressure is especially important when you're using the edge of the nib. That's because the edge tends to sink down into the wood surface. This makes it very difficult to create a good texture. As more layers are applied, the pen tip wants to stay in the ruts that are made by using heavy hand pressure. This problem becomes more pronounced the thinner the pen tip is and/or when burning on softer woods like basswood. As I angle the board, you can really see how deep the lines are on the left burn. The left burn was created using heavy hand pressure. I cannot emphasize enough the need to use a light hand pressure when creating all pyrography artwork. Tip 4. Try different pen tips. What works best for me may not be the best option for you, but unless you try different tips, you're not going to know. A number of artists prefer wire tips, similar to my previous examples, versus a flat pen tip like I'm currently using. The reason is that the wire tips don't dig into the board like flat tips do. On the left side, I am burning a bunch of single lines, and on the right, I am using the zigzag burn stroke. I think both methods can produce good results. Is there a benefit to using one method over the other? Not that I am aware of. Instead, it is a matter of personal preference and what works best for you. I highly recommend you try both methods and see which one you prefer. Well, that is it for this video. I hope you found the information helpful and will be able to use it in your own art projects. Well, I thank you so much for watching my video, and I will see you soon.